Mother was, everybody could hear me, right? Can everybody hear me? I preached a 4 o'clock Mass, and everybody told me after Mass that my mic wasn't working. So if it fails this time, somebody tell me during Mass. Her grandmother was sharing with her little granddaughter how simple her life was and how much fun it was when she was just a little child, the same age as the granddaughter. And she talked about ice skating on the pond behind their house and about going for rides on the swing that was made out of this rubber tire that sat on this huge tree in their front yard. She talked about taking pony rides on their property, and when they wanted fruit, they would just go into the woods and pick wild raspberries that were the sweetest thing you ever tasted. And the little granddaughter looked at her with amazement and at last said to the grandmother, "Grandma, I wish I knew you sooner." Those simple things in life. You know, I use that little joke as an opening to my homily because my wife Lorraine and I have been talking about how can we make our lives more simpler. And as we grow towards that age, the obvious conversation is when to retire. Now, I got to tell you, and by the way, Lorraine knows about this homily, so don't worry that she's sitting there. Believe me, I preface everything with her first. But Lorraine decided to retire late last year, so you can only imagine that what follows is, "Hey, John, when are you going to retire?" And, you know, I say to Lorraine, geez, there's so many things that we got to worry about. You know, what about health insurance? You know, do we have the right insurance? And what happens if it changes? Do we have the financial wherewithal to, God forbid, protect ourselves against the unforeseen? And where do you think interest rates might be going? And how do you think the economy is going to behave? And, oh, man, what about this and what about that? And Lorraine just looks and says, "John, those are all things, those are all obstacles that you're putting in the way of when are you going to retire?" Now, I got to tell you, Lorraine, as I said, decided a few months ago to retire. And there's nothing worse than living with someone that retires before you, let me tell you. But thank God she did, because one of the first things she decided to do was to begin cleaning out all of the years of stuff that we have accumulated in the 28 years we lived here, plus the things that we brought with us from all the moves across the world. And let me tell you, I am amazed at how much stuff she has given away. And let me tell you, there are a lot of people in Western New York that are now enjoying our treasure, but perhaps they may think it's our junk. But I mention that because at the time we acquired all those things over our 46 years of marriage, they seemed so important at the time. You know, we had to have this, we had to have that, we had to have whatever. And ultimately they ended up in the basement, and now they're sitting in probably someone else's basement, I don't know. Amazing how those things that we think are important at one point in our lives tend to be a lot less important. And you know, perhaps it was these conversations with Lorraine about when's the right time to retire. But as I sat down to pray over the readings, and especially today's gospel, I couldn't help but focus on that one verse where Jesus sends out his apostles 2 by 2, with nothing but a walking stick. No food, no clothing, no money in their belt, not even a second cloak. Why? Why would Jesus do that? My friends, because he sent them on a mission. And that mission could have no distractions. And the truth of the matter is, when we really think about it, the things in our lives tend to distract us. My example of my reluctance to quickly come to a decision about retirement is an example. There are so many things I'm allowing to get in my way. Though something tells me Lorraine will make it much clearer for me. So I thought about what would be a good message to share with you today. And I thought instead, I'm going to ask all of you to take a look at your lives and see what challenges, what obstacles, what things might be in your way. And you might say, but Deacon, why is that important? Well, I want to look at the things today that might be somehow impacting all of our relationship with others and our relationship with God. For example, perhaps you like to buy things. I know I do. But perhaps you bought too many things. You know, maybe that credit card balance is at a level that you stay up at night worrying about it. Maybe you have to go for a second mortgage or a home equity loan. Maybe your debt is so heavy that you have to work extra hours, or perhaps a second job. What is that doing to your relationships? How is that perhaps impacting your relationship with God? What about your job? The desire to get ahead. There is absolutely nothing the matter with that. Believe me, this is coming from a person who continues to work in a professional world. But I even have to ask myself, what am I doing to get ahead? Is it playing fair, or is it at other people's expense? What about the authority that's given to us in the workplace or at home or wherever we are? How do we exercise that authority? Do we do it with love and compassion? Or are we that authoritarian that it's my way or the highway? My friends, these are just obstacles that we need to take a look at, to put out in front of us, to determine if they are impacting the way we live with others and how we're deepening or not our relationship with God. What about our health choices? Are we making healthy ones? Do we treat our body as if it's that temple created by God, or do we abuse it? Do we allow ourselves to make healthy choices, or do we succumb to what's gratifying, yet knowing that it could be detrimental to us? How do we treat others? With respect or with scorn? My friends, it's never comfortable to do these self-inventories. But my challenge to each one of us today is to take the time to look at our lives. Look at the things that might be preventing us from deepening relationships with each other and with God. What is it that we may see that if we could move it aside in our lives, we could move our spiritual life further? Job has a beautiful passage in his book of Job. I was born naked from the womb, and naked I will depart. My friends, we all like to accumulate things. We all find reasons to hold on to things in our lives. My challenge to all of us is take this next week and examine our lives and determine what things might we be able to put aside. What are the things that might be preventing us from deepening relationships with each other and with God? And to take those and commit that we will put them aside and move forward in our eternal salvation.